we are, what I think we should start doing, maybe we should take the headies more seriously. Maybe we should, just sort of step up to own and validate our own contributions in a way that's more authentic and more uniquely ours.
It's so intriguing to find Burna Boy, our own Burna Boy, and Davido losing to Shakti as a World Fusion band one with the album. This moment ahead of Burna Boy's I Told Them, Davido's Timeless albums, and others, and so on and so forth. And then, it's very worrisome how they arrive at the winner, because so much criticisms have actually, gone on for Grammy Award, against Grammy Award, that, for various reasons, including perceived bias, lack of diversity in nominations and winners. Exactly what do you think could have been responsible for us not to have clinched at least one?
To be honest, you rightly mentioned there's been a lot of criticism, just sort of trailing the Grammy Awards, and it didn't start now, from The Weeknd to Kanye West to all kinds of people. We don't, to be honest, we don't fully understand the prerequisite. We don't fully understand, the criteria. And we don't fully understand the people, the voting members of the Academy, and how that whole situation functions. I think that, the Grammys have recognized that there is, an emerging movement out of Africa, and, hence the categories that have been created. But, I don't know. I don't know if one can really, especially on TV, speak to, the validity and all of these things, in terms of how, they've arrived at this, because these things were massive hits, not just in Nigeria, but the world over. You know what I mean? But these sort of responses, this is not the first time we're noticing them with the Grammys. So I don't know, to be honest, I don't know. Again, for me, I think, it raises the question, how do we validate our own contributions to our music and to our culture? And, how much input do we have in terms of the authority that, the Grammy carries, the world over? And yes, this is having had experience and having run for clearly 60-something years, but, how do we begin to validate and appreciate our own contributions? I think for me, that's really the most important
And that's the critical question. How? Because there's been talks about we not seeing the creation of this category by the Grammys as they're doing us a favor. So if we are talking about validating our culture, embracing it in such a way that the world begins to give us that kind of recognition that we desire, what are we to do exactly?
I think we should start by understanding that right now we don't have control of the infrastructure on which this movement is built, and that's a dangerous situation. I think it is to have a more holistic conversation in terms of how it's happened in places like Hollywood, and even more recently, I think, South Korea and such, so that understanding what entertainment is for us right now and how it's one of the strongest export our culture, understanding how to have a conversation that involves the financial sector, that involves credit line, that involves, education, that involves everything, so that we begin to, move the conversation, the infrastructure and everything, to our own space, so that Nigeria, if there's any country that's poised to do it in Africa or in the world, it is Nigeria. And I think that, when we start to do that and we start to create something that's more autonomous and more authentic, and for God's sake, it's not like we were consulted when the Grammys was created. We're really trying to get into this situation that, and I say this with respect, a bunch of Americans came together and decided this would be, the yardstick for measuring the performance of the rest of the world. How audacious is that? So I don't know. I think for me, that's really the thing. And not everyone is going to agree with this opinion, but I think we need to deal with our own, we need to begin to work our own infrastructure, have a deeper conversation around education, around the economics of building our own infrastructure, and then building our own awards and validation system. I think that might be a good start.
Well, maybe for the sake of spirit of sportsmanship, when we win, we celebrate, and then when we haven't won, then we should probably sit back, recalibrate, and relaunch ourselves. Because I'm wondering how, because since 1983, when we have